Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 37 of 2020. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow us on Twitter at The Odds Breakers. Follow us on social media / The Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by mybookie.ag. For a 50% sign-up bonus, please visit MyBookie and use the promo code The Odds Breakers. Terms and conditions apply. If you'd like to help us out with our costs and sponsor the podcast and website, we would love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. For $17.99 a month, you can get my plays and premium plays before the line moves. If nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. We have a great show for you today. ESPN's deputy sports editor, David Bearman, is here to break down some of the great things he does over at ESPN from a sports betting perspective, what he works on. I'm really excited to talk to him about that. Before we get to that, we have a listener question. Derek reached out to us to ask if we'd like to bet on our units, if we'd like to put a little bit more in to cover the juice, meaning if your unit size in his example is $100 and you have a 2-star play, would you bet $220 to get paid $200, or would you bet $200 to get paid $182? That's a great question. There's no really perfect science to it. I mean, I suppose it's never going to, your bankroll's never going to be exact by the numbers because you're always laying juice no matter what you do. You're either taking more out of it to place a bet, or you're over the unit size, or you're just placing the bet and getting paid a little bit less, like $100 would be $90.90. So it doesn't matter. It's a complete personal preference the way you do it. The way I do it most of the time is I will just put the extra juice down in my bet so I get paid an even number. So you win a clean $100, a clean $20, whatever you're betting. So that's the way I personally like to do it. But I also will get lazy once in a while, and I'll just put up the bet and not even put the juice in, especially if I'm not as confident. Sometimes actually we'll do it by book. There's like a couple books I use. I always lay the extra couple cents for the juice. And there's one book that I just get lazy on, and I don't know why. It's just complete personal preference the way you want to do it. It really doesn't matter. Just make sure when you track it, you put it in the way that you bet it. I always put the perfect exact denominations in when I'm tracking my stuff, either through the professional Sports Watch Monitor stuff, or if I do it through my own Action Network app that I just track for my own plays myself. So you can do either way. No rhyme or reason to it, in my opinion. And this question comes up pretty commonly, and I suppose my advice would be, don't do it like me. Just be consistent and do it either way that you want. Just pick a way and kind of stick with it throughout the season. It makes it easier on you to, I guess, manage your money most likely. But at least try to keep it consistent per sportsbook that you use. You know what's kind of interesting to me is when you look at decimal odds and you look at American odds. Decimal odds is like 1.909 for a bet that is minus 100. You can actually round it up to 1.91, right? I don't know why America has to use these weird odds where you have to base everything on $100. It actually confuses people a lot. I mean, if it was up to me, I would just always have it decimal odds and have people just get used to that. Because that way you know exactly what you're getting paid if you're doing different size bets rather than, $100, right? What if you like to bet $30? What if you like to bet $50? What if you'd like to bet $75? People have different unit size all over the boards, and it gets a little bit confusing on how much extra juice that they have to lay to make that denomination. Obviously, there's sports books that tell you, and you can do a quick calculation. But it's really silly to me that American odds is still used, because you can convert it very easily. Minus 110. To convert that to decimal, you just put that on the bottom, and since it's based on 100, you put the 100 on the top, and then you get your 0.909, the fraction 100 over 110, divided out 0.909, and then you put the 1 in front of it. That's what you're getting paid. If you put $100 down, you get paid $191, right? If you put $50 down, you just multiply 50 times 1.91. You get paid $95.50. Easy to figure out your profit of $45.50. If your odds are minus 300, you simply take 100 divided by 300. That's 0.33. Then you add your 1 back into it. That's what you're getting paid. $100 bet times 1.33 is $133. You see what I'm saying? If it's minus 250, 100 divided by 250 is 0.4. You make 1.4 times your bet. It's just easier for people that don't bet exactly $100 denominations. You know exactly what you're getting. So I'm actually kind of surprised that America still uses odds based upon $100. And when people do mathematical calculations, it's a little bit harder for them. It's almost as the industry itself wants you to bet exactly $100 every single time, or exactly $10 every single time, so you know how much more you have to put in easily to make whatever you want to get back on it. Now, if you want to do what I said before about laying the extra juice, paying $220 to make $200 when it comes to decimal odds, it's pretty simple. For minus 300, if you want to make exactly like $30 off that bet, the decimal odds is minus or 1.33 for what we just calculated. You just take the 1 away, take your $30, divide it by 0.33, and you get 90.90. That's what you have to bet to make $30. Multiply 90.90 times 1.33, you get 120.90. So there you go. That's literally the way that decimal odds works. And to be honest with you, it's actually easier to think things through when looking at decimal odds, because it tells you what you're actually getting paid rather than just looking at the crazy minus 500 when it's really just 1.2 times is what you're getting paid. Right. So just wanted to throw that out there, that there are easier ways to think through your betting if you decide to convert it to decimal odds. And that way you know exactly what you're going to get paid on any denomination of a bet. If any of you have any more questions for the Odds Breakers, please feel free to contact us via Twitter or contact us via our website at www.theoddsbreakers.com. Without further ado, let's bring in our guest, ESPN's David Bearman. And now I am excited to introduce a man who has helped break down some of the barriers in the media. to show the friendly sides of sports betting to all of America. He's the deputy editor of sports betting at ESPN. I am very happy to introduce Mr. David Bearman from ESPN.com. You can follow him on Twitter at DBearmanESPN. David, it looks like we're slowly getting some of our big sports back, man. How has the summer been treating you?
Awesome. Thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure to be on, and you said it right there. We're little by little, we're getting sports back, and I just had a call this morning where we talked about, all right, what's our coverage going to look like when we have baseball, basketball, hockey, this thing called football, and oh, by the way, mix in a couple of golf majors, tennis majors, and horse racing, a triple crown races, and call it a day. So Hopefully, knock on wood, everybody stays healthy and the sports don't have issues and they come back and stay in their bubbles and their non-bubbles, and we get some sports. And, no disrespect, I'm the biggest golf fan in the world, but I need more than just golf. I need some football. I need some basketball and baseball. So let's go. Well,
if you got your fingers crossed out there, cross them harder. We need you. We need some college football back. That's the biggest worry I have. But, with how the UFC is going, baseball's kind of starting off. No positive tests this week in the NBA. Yeah, we have some hope, and that's what we have to pretty much bank on, my man, to get our fun back. But why don't you tell our listeners exactly what your job is at ESPN?
Sure. As you mentioned, deputy editor of sports betting at ESPN. I oversee primarily all of our digital content, the website, www.espn.com/chalk, where you'll find all of our betting information. A lot of our E+ stuff is there, our betting columns, as well as feature pieces from David Bearman, Doug Kazarian, and others. And I work hand in hand with the TV side, which is what my background was in before I came over to the digital side, helping launch Daily Wager, which pre-pandemic was our 6-day-a-week, 1-hour gambling show, sports betting show that was hosted by Doug Kazarian and his cast of minions. And then we still do it. There was a YouTube show we had the other day that I tweeted out that they're talking about the NBA comeback. So for all things considered, I basically help oversee the sports betting content for the company, which includes making sure all the different areas know what's going on with our sports betting content. As well as acting as a liaison with our betting partners, such as Caesars Sportsbook, who is our official odds provider, and we work with them every day to provide us sports betting content that we use on digital and TV and social platforms.
So you kind of oversee all that stuff at ESPN and kind of put everything together, correct? And then they go to you if they want to, offer some ideas and some changes.
Yeah, like for instance, we had an ideas meeting on Tuesday about the NBA coming back. So I brought in a whole bunch of different departments at ESPN, from TV side, our research side, our Daily Wager and digital, and our NBA edit side, and put them all together and said, all right, the NBA, we know the NBA is coming back. What can we do from a betting side? And we've come up with 3 or 4 different pieces we're going to run and videos we're going to shoot, topics for Daily Wager and stuff that SportsCenter can run when the NBA is back. And if you look at our network and you're watching SportsCenter, or you're watching an NBA show, The Jump, or Daily Wager when it's back on TV or when it's on YouTube, or reading on the website, if there's sports betting content in there, most likely it came from somewhere, either myself or people that I work with to produce that content. And if, we need information, if they want to do, hey, we really have this idea of what's the race for the 8th seed going to be in the West with the Pelicans and everybody else, I call Caesars up and have a conference call with them on, hey, can you get us this prop? We'd really, really like to talk about it on air, and then give it to SportsCenter, give it to Daily Wager, etc. So all things content of sports betting that we're rapidly growing, not only at ESPN, but in this country as well.
Oh, that is awesome. And you must be a pretty busy man juggling all these sports and everything together. And, not only that, I see you build this massive playground type accessory on Twitter. I've been following you throughout the summer. I think the time to build it was 20 hours and I took the over.
Yes.
So I want to ask how your kids are enjoying that right now.
Well, those two things went hand in hand. You talked about being busy, and it was the pandemic hits and school has been canceled and daycare has been canceled. I have a 6-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl, and they're here at home. And sure, we do the distance learning in the morning, and mommy's got it and daddy's got it, and we're passing the kids around, and we're like, shoot, the weather's getting warmer. We got to get them outside so we can work. and we wanted a playscape for them since they were at the house 24/7 at the time. And yeah, me and my wife, we didn't get divorced over it. We built it in 20 hours over the course of about 2 weeks. And I would work in the morning, take a break, go outside for lunch, work for an hour, putting some screws in there, go back to work. And 5:30, I'd go outside and put another hour or two together, and had my wife help me when I needed more hands. And they love it. They love playing on it. And luckily, they're back in camp and daycare right now. But as soon as they get home in 20 minutes, they're going to be running outside on it. So
that's awesome, man. And I picture doing that for my kids, and the only thing I can think is they'll start playing on it and be really excited for 10 minutes, and then maybe go right to their tablets, and that's what worries me a little bit.
Oh, the tablets, that was the other reason, was to get them off the tablets. Like, you know how it is. Like, yeah. I got a Zoom call or a Blue Jeans call, and I can't have my kid bother me. Here's a tablet, go watch. Well, here's a swing set, go play. I've even gone to the third floor of the swing set to do a couple of these podcasts before, because my kid can't climb up there without help.
That's podcast in the heat and humidity, huh? That's got to be fun sometimes. Well, that's awesome. And I don't know how long it took you. I think it was, what'd you say, 25 hours on Twitter? I don't remember.
Yeah, it was mid to upper 20s, and we kind of set the over under there based on 3 people helping, and I only had 3 people help every once in a while when I couldn't carry something.
All right. Well, I'll tell you this. I dread the day that I'm going to have to do it, but I know I'm going to have to do it. So I might have to come back to you for some advice, buddy. So, hey, why don't you tell us a little history on ESPN Chalk, the Daily Wager, how things got started there. How did ESPN get started in sports betting, and what was your role doing that?
Sure. We've had the Chalk website for a couple of years now, and it was primarily a site that was in with other sites, whether it be our esports area or poker area. It was kind of all combined together because betting obviously wasn't legal at the time, and it was only legal in Las Vegas. And I was over on the TV side working in our stats information department, and I would constantly pitch gambling content, and I didn't have a lot of people listening to want the gambling content because it wasn't legal, and people were a little bit scared of talking about it, other than tongue-in-cheek when Brett Musburger or Al Michaels would drop it from time to time. Right. That's all you would really get. But we continuously push the content just like we would if it was Tom Brady is 8-1 in his last 9 against the Dolphins. We would tell you if he was 4-5 ATS against the Dolphins. Sometimes it got used. Sometimes we were told it wasn't allowed to be used, depending on what platform it was. But we wanted to continuously push that content, and then we actually developed a sports betting area within our stats information department to build out gambling databases, build out content. So one day, lo and behold, if the Supreme Court should, overturn a big law, we might be in the best position to succeed. And sure enough, that happened. And we have all this gambling data at ESPN that we had purchased and built with all the other databases we have, where, the stats information group is 150 to 200 people. And we have databases to look up this information and pitch the content when ready. PASPA is overturned, the lights get turned on. Hey, what can we do now? How can we monetize this? So I helped with the pilot of Daily Wager back 2 years ago, which turned into a 5-day-a-week and now 6-day-a-week show. Helped launch that, hosted by Doug Kazarian. Mm-hmm. And then, continuously pushed our gambling content to SportsCenter, where you probably see a betting graphic in almost every single one. Helped educate a lot of the people at the company that were novices at the betting lingo. As if you're not into it, it might be a little bit intimidating to know what the money lines and the over-unders are. And just because you're going to be producing shows that have betting content in it, we want to make sure that everybody is up to date on what is needed and what's the right way to go. So we actually had like sports betting 101 sessions where we helped educate producers and others at the company as to what this lingo was. And then after we launched Daily Wager and made business deals with the likes of Caesar Sportsbooks, our partners, I then moved over to the digital side to grow Chalk and expand it. We have a lot more writers than we had before, and we're doing a lot more things than we did before, and it's only going to continue. We're now in the app. If you go to the ESPN app, you can find Chalk in one of the drop downs that wasn't in there before. So that was one of the improvements we made, and just continuing to grow the sports betting every single day and putting it in more shows and more content in more places. And, we're doing a NASCAR column every single week now that we never had before. So those are the type of things that you go on our site now and you'll see NASCAR best bets and you'll see best bets from golf with featuring Doug, Anita Marks, and the Bear, Chris Felica, and myself, and a couple of those columns are there that we didn't have before. So we're just continually pushing that content and making sure that in this era with the pandemic that we're ready to go and sports bettors have all the resources they need to make informed decisions.
Well, that's awesome. That's a lot that you had to do there. And Chris is a reoccurring guest on this show. I can imagine that what he does on College Game Day with his 3 games against the spread might have helped push that along as well. And I would imagine that might have helped you kind of get this thing going with ESPN.
It did. Chris has been fantastic. He's been someone that has pushed the envelope time and time again when it comes to betting content. Game Day was one of the first shows that actually featured the picks that the Bear makes, and even before he made them on air, they would ask him questions about it, and they would have little jokes back and forth on set about what the lines were. So they pushed it. They were allowed to do it. They integrated a little bit, and we used Game Day as a platform to show the rest of the company that it would work. Like you could actually have, that pick segment that you have at the end of Game Day. Of course, they'll put the headgear on. It doesn't have to necessarily be just who's going to win the game. Mm-hmm. You can say something like, hey, they're going to win, but they're also going to win by 7. And Chris has been obviously the card-carrying champion of this information, and I've worked with Chris for 15 years, and he's been a fantastic colleague and partner when it comes to this information, and it's great to work with him every day.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, it's the game within the game, right? And
yep.
Coming from a bad sports town like Chicago, I had to somehow enjoy sports and have a little something on some of these games when I was young, to try to make things more interesting. And what it does is lock you into games, and you really appreciate other teams because the team that you have a wager or an investment on, as you can say, is your favorite team for that moment. So it certainly makes it a lot of fun. And that's what happened to me. How did you get into sports betting itself?
A little bit of both. I would say at the beginning I was infatuated with the field, and make a very, very long story short, I was at a Heat game with my dad and just coincidentally happened to be sitting next to Roxy Roxborough and Roxy's son, Roxy being a long time Vegas veteran and legend. I happened to be sitting next to him at a Heat game when I was probably 15 years old, and he told me everything that he did in the field, and I was infatuated by it. That's what you do to corrupt a 15-year-old kid. I would go to the local barbershop with my dad and my brother, and there were parlay cards there from the barber from New Jersey, and I would ask what they were, and I would hand one in for free, and I'd get a couple of lollipops if I hit the game. So, I was knowledgeable of it, and then just like most sport fans that are in college who like to dabble, you could find somewhere on campus that might take your money and be that bookie, and so I was always involved in that capacity, and enthralled by the space. But then as I got older, my teams got worse. I root for the Dolphins. I root for the Marlins. Obviously, the Heat had their LeBron heyday. And it was like, well, who is my favorite team? And it's still the Dolphins and the Marlins and the Gators and stuff. But so is the teams that I bet on. And it became, to me, I enjoy it more than fantasy football. And like to everybody else, fantasy football is that legal vice that you can play and compete against your friends and show off your fantasy knowledge. And to be honest, I love fantasy football and I still do it. I got torn down and broken down by how much you can't control in fantasy football. And I'm not saying I can control my bets, but I feel like I have a better chance to hit more than 52.8% of my bets than I do of winning a fantasy league because, Bill Belichick decided that this running back was not going to be in the game today because he's Bill Belichick. Right. So I don't have all the information, just like nobody has all the information, but I feel like I have a lot more knowledge that I can put in place for a game, team versus team, than I do with fantasy. Again, I love fantasy and I still do it. You have a lot less, in my mind, control over what the coach's game plan is going to be than you do when it's sports betting.
100%. There's a lot less variance when it comes to just the winner or loser of a game or how a bunch of players are going to play. I mean, if you look at a lot of people playing DFS, daily fantasy, there's professionals that have thousands of combinations of people going on every week. in football. People don't know that. They're literally going against people that have computerized situations and models that actually predict, what the best combinations are. So that is no easy feat going on playing 5 games yourself and going against that. What fantasy football's done for me though, as a positive side, David, is it's made me learn more about some of these teams. I will get an alert so quickly when there's an injury just upon the apps that I use. And that could be a running back. It could be the quarterback. It could be the middle linebacker on defense. It could be somebody pretty important. And those people could possibly move the line, especially when it comes to a quarterback or something like that. So that's where I've gotten an advantage from fantasy and just understanding how a team can beat some other people. So that's the positives of it. But as far as my Sundays, I don't look at my fantasy team. I'm looking at my sports betting just like you, David.
Yeah, and there is a lot of correlation. I consider the DFS stuff very, very similar to the prop situation where you're basically betting, an angle of, is this guy going to get over under a certain amount of things. So I think they're very, very similar and play off each other, which is why I never understood for the longest time why one was legal and one wasn't. And I fought against that. And now we get more and more states are getting legal. It's not going to matter anymore. But yeah, I still do fantasy and I still do pools and I still have betting. And for me, it's honestly a hobby and a source of entertainment. Yes, there's a monetary value involved, but I'm not one of those guys. I can freely admit I'm not dropping 5 dimes on a game. I do it because I enjoy doing it and it's not going to break me either way. I have fun with it. And I just like you're monitoring your fantasy team, I'm monitoring the box scores.
And that's exactly how it should be, using the Kelly criterion, using unit size. Don't ever increase it because you won a week and just think that you're going to blow it away the next week. Those are some of the disciplines that I've learned over the past and some of the stuff that I'm sure you know.
Absolutely.
How much handicapping, David, do you do on your own? It sounds like a lot over the past years.
Yeah, and I've gotten more and more. I think it would be the biggest difference between me a couple of years ago and me now that I'm fully integrated into the business side and running the content side. I have a lot more access, and my entire job surrounds sports betting as opposed to my previous role at ESPN, which was more a lot of different hats. And sports betting was just kind of one of the things I was overseeing before PASPA, so I didn't spend a whole lot of time that I didn't have studying it. But now that is my role and all we're doing is producing content, I have a lot more time to that's what I do. If I'm handicapping a game, I'm also working in one way, shape, or form. Because handicapping golf is one of my passions that I've always been involved in. So when we start the weekly golf column that we did earlier this year when we came back from the pandemic with the Colonial, I now handicap golf with Felica and others. So I'm doing, while handicapping that is our column. It's hand in hand. I would say other sports that I enjoy. I'm a big, big fan of the fringe events and fringe sports that the market hasn't matured yet and things you can buy, get into and win by finding edges. Like the NFL market is what it is. It's matured. If you're betting on Sunday of the NFL, you've already lost. You got to get in, Monday with the best lines.
Right.
But the ones I would consider less mature markets, like I was very, very into the XFL and the Alliance before that. I watched every game. Read the rosters, checked out the Twitter feeds, and I was handicapping the XFL pretty successfully. I'm a big college baseball guy, so the few books who offer college baseball, I was doing that for a lot. And yes, I do college football and NFL just like everybody else. I consider myself better at college football than the NFL. I'm in our NFL picks file on Sundays. We all handicap college football and NFL. There's a million of us, but I'm more a fan of specifically I'm having a lot of fun with Korean baseball. I know that sounds odd.
I've been watching.
But I have a lot of fun. You're talking about 10 teams, and you can find mistakes in the lines and soft markets not being bet into a lot. And if you kind of can figure it out, it's not 30 teams, it's 10 teams. There's only 4 or 5 good pitchers. There's not 15 of them. So the smaller the league, the less amount of players and teams, the more I like handicapping it. I'm not saying you can't do well in a 127 team college football. There's just a lot of teams. And again, when I handicap college football, I go to the Mountain West and I go to the AAC and I'll go to the WAC because less good players and less people betting into those, and more availability to take advantage of what my number one attribute with gambling is: value. I always just look for value. And I'm not the guy who has the algorithm that's just going to pump it out and say, all right, this line is this, my algorithm says this. I'm not a model guy. I'm an aggregator. As Doug Kazarian likes to say, I'll take all of the information and make my best case based on value. If I think, I won't bet if there's no value. And I think you can find a lot more value in stuff like Mountain West football or Korean baseball or XFL. And, it's fun while it lasts. But again, if you're betting the NFL, do it Monday or Tuesday. Don't do it Sunday because it's already been bet into.
Those are some great rules to follow. And if you're ever going to place your bets on Sunday morning, it better be because that line moved past your number due to some public influence, because the public still does influence, I would say, NFL games in the popular colleges, your Alabamas, your Ohio States, and things like that. But what you talked about is like conference specialty. You're specializing on something a lot smaller, and I preach that all the time. I, of course, specialize in the Big Ten, being a Badger fan, but I'm also looking at the MAC or something one year a lot harder than I am another thing. And I'll switch off sometimes year by year. But that's some great advice. Heck, we have people that bet from croquet to Russian table tennis as our listeners. So Korean baseball isn't something that we can't relate to there, David. So good stuff, man. So I guess you're writing golf columns. I'm checking them out. You're always tweeting them out, and you can follow David at D Bearman ESPN on Twitter. What's your favorite thing to bet on? Favorite sport, I suppose.
Favorite sport to bet on, and probably, it was the XFL based on success I was having. Of all the major sports, I would say college football is probably my favorite, just because it's such a passionate sport, and you can, it's probably the opposite of what I just said. There's too many teams and there's too many conferences, but college football to me is like, the NFL is so tight. You're talking about it's always 3 points and 4 points in every game, and anybody can win it every time. College football, which, I went to University of Florida, so I'm from the SEC area. I'm a very, very big, huge college football fan, and I don't mind taking 27 points in a game. You don't get that in the NFL. Right. I don't mind watching the first half and saying, that team that was a 30-point favorite is only winning by 7, so you're going to get a low second half line. Now you're going to hop on that team. We talked about smaller conferences versus bigger conferences, like something like the SEC, which I follow immensely. I hopped on Alabama first half bets 2 years ago, and they were 10-1 in the first 11 games of the season in first half bets. No one's looking at that. They're looking at the game and the fact that they're, 27-point favorite over Ole Miss. But you know what? They're playing their fourth string and they're not covering. But guess what they did in the first half? They won 24-0 in the first half. So I do really think college football is one of the biggest ones that I like betting. I'm very passionate about baseball, but I have had a damn hard time trying to find success in betting baseball, and statistics have shown that is the least profitable sport to bet on. It's going to be interesting to see how the 60-game season does. I'm not a huge basketball bettor. The NFL and college football both are huge for me, and like I said, finding the fringe leagues like the XFL. I wasn't really into Russian ping pong, but I can see why people would bet that. And I mentioned it off the top. I pretty much love golf more than any other sport. I play it. I worked in it. I covered it a lot at ESPN when I was a researcher, and I'm very big into betting golf. And again, it's all about finding value. I'm not going to go ahead and bet 20 different guys to win the event. I'm going to find one or two I like, play a couple of top 10s and 20s, and try to find some matchups that I like as well.
Yeah, golf has really evolved into a matchup-based sport. And same with NASCAR. We have a great guy named Paul that does a NASCAR podcast for the Odds Breakers here, and he's always doing well and giving us great information. And that's been growing in popularity as well, as I'm sure you've seen a lot of NASCAR bettors out there. So, no, that's great. For me, it's the same. College football, I love betting on kids that look at every game like it's their last. There's no letdowns. You let down, you're either out of the playoffs or out of the hunt to win your conference. So I love that type of thing. It takes away some of the variances of maybe an NFL team's just not into it and they're thinking about the next team next week. You get a lot of that. So great call there. Do you think all the states will eventually adapt or adopt sports betting and legalize it within?
I think most of them will, for various number of reasons. One being they need the money, especially post-pandemic. The states are going to need the money, and it has proven to be a cash cow for the states, especially New Jersey and Nevada. Now that there's no federal restrictions on it, there's no reason to no law to stop you from doing it. You won't get every single state. There are more conservative states like Utah that you will not see it in there based on some of the values of the people, and that's to each his own. Nothing wrong with that. I do think that we're looking at a situation where you could see upwards of 40, 45 states with legalized betting over the next 2 or 3 years, because it's now not prohibited, and it's proven to bring money to the table that can be used in schools and art and other museums. That's what they're doing. And you take a state like New York, one of the the epicenter of America business, and you can bet in upstate New York at the casinos that you can't bet in New York City. So what do? They leave New York City, they go over the bridge, over the tunnel, whatever your mass transit is, over to Jersey and Hoboken and Jersey City, and they're betting over there, and then they're coming back. And there's, millions and millions and millions of state dollars leaving the great state of New York every single day and weekend with the NFL and college football. That's money that they can't afford not to have.
Right.
And New Jersey's doing great. They were the first state out there doing this the right way. That mobile betting is the way to go. It's easy to do from your phone. And yes, we need protections, and we're all about safe gambling and ensuring that people have the information needed to ensure that they don't get into trouble. But if you're governor of New York or, mayor of New York City, and you're looking at the fact that how many millions of dollars in your state income is going over to Jersey because you have a different law than they do, that's the type of stuff that you're just not going to get away with for much longer. And, it's the same thing down in the Southwest with, you have it legal in Mississippi, but not legal in Louisiana and, Texas, and they're leaving to go to other states, going across the border to get it done. Like New Mexico is legal. So if you're in Texas, you're going over the border. They need that income. And I think the fact that there's nothing in the way anymore, and it's going to bring more people to casinos when it's open, and more people, more money. Like, that's what people want. If you're a politician, what do you want? You want a balanced budget. Well, here's some money to go get it. So I think more and more people were seeing that. And I believe we're upwards of 35 states already have something on the docket to discuss sports betting at some point.
100%. I am shocked that some of these states that are completely in debt haven't jumped at the opportunity quicker. Chicago, well, Illinois finally did, but New York, like you said, it just amazes me. They're not. It's almost like they don't have. It's not a huge religious state. You don't have that problem. The whole thing about sports betting is that it had a bad name to it, and everyone was scared about it, but no one knew why. Why? There's a huge market for it. People buy state lottery tickets, which has way less of a payout percentage. Go ahead. I
was actually going to share that story. I tell this to other people all the time on stations and podcasts. I remember it was pre-pandemic. I was on my way home from work, and I work ESPN, so I'm in Connecticut, a state that does not have legalized gambling, even though they have two of the biggest casinos outside of Las Vegas in Mohegan and Foxwoods right there in the state that would love to have sports betting. They have humongous racetrack books there. It's huge. And it's frustrating to know that, you got to drive to Jersey, you got to drive to Rhode Island, you got to go to Massachusetts, not Massachusetts yet, but soon. And I remember leaving work one day right after a whole discussion about the politics of Connecticut and what's going on, since I was a little bit involved there as well. And I had to stop for gas. And I went inside, and I was 4 deep in line to buy a Gatorade along with my gas. And the 3 people in front of me were buying God knows how many lottery tickets, which is cash only, and taking forever. And I'm sitting there thinking, so I'm in this line forever because 3 people are buying lottery tickets and throwing probably money away. Call it what it is. It's a lottery ticket, scratch-offs and Powerball, all things we all do, and spending cash, hard-earned cash at the local gas station, yet I can't make a wager on a sporting event. And I'm thinking to myself, what's the difference? This guy just gave a $20 bill so he could try to scratch off a 7 is higher than a 3 in whatever game he had.
Some he had no control over, none whatsoever.
And I can't go bet $20 on the Dolphins legally. I'm thinking, why? Why is that legal? Why is that guy able to give away his hard-earned cash that his wife's going to ask him for later when it's not in his pocket, but I can't go on my phone and spend $20 on a baseball or football game? And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. It is the same thing. I can go to the casino and lose all my money playing blackjack, but I can't bet on a sporting event. And to me, there was no difference. It's everybody's vice. Obviously, there needs to be precautions and responsible gaming. Everything you see when you're at the casino, again, I'm all for that. But if you're able to go and spend money on the craps tables in the poker room, there's just no difference. And then you include daily fantasy and fantasy being legal, and you're like, really? So I can go bet. I can do a DraftKings team and put players together, but I can't go ahead and bet on that team. I'm like, what's the difference? And finally, federal law was struck down, and like you said, it was taboo, and it was a black eye, and it's deemed negative, and people can legally drink, people can legally smoke, people can legally do certain drugs in certain states that are now legal, but they couldn't sports bet, which just was mind-boggling to me.
And to take it even farther, those people buying those scratch-off tickets are giving away 30% of their income over time. 30%. If you're just making straight sports bets without even just putting thought into it, year by year, you're down 2.5%. You're down your juice. You're minus 110. And if you're doing some parlays, maybe just a little bit more if you have no education on it. But the fact that you can actually win and beat it blows my mind that it's not slightly taxed on the hold. And it's just like what you said, disinformation was out there for too long. It was taboo. So much disinformation, and hopefully, if anything comes good from this pandemic, it's that the states are so broke that they have to choose to adopt it anyway, David. So, had you a long time, my man, and I have one more question for you before you go, and I have to ask this thing. Do you have any thoughts or plays or teams that you like for the upcoming football season? Could be college or NFL. Is there any free plays that you'd like to give out?
Sure. I already took, when the lines came out back in March, I took the Bears under 9.5, and that line has moved down to about 8.5 total wins, based on me not being the only one who thought that was a good one. So I can really tell you I have that one. A lot of thought was put into it in April and May when we did the release of the line. So I have to remember, I do like the Indianapolis Colts potentially to win the AFC. Obviously, you have Kansas City and Baltimore, who are no doubt the two best teams in the league. But without Tom Brady in New England, I think the door is opened a little bit for Indianapolis with Phillip Rivers to at least give it a run. And they're getting really good odds because you have Kansas City and Baltimore. I think that's a play that I like. College football, I'm a little biased, but I think Florida, should the season be played. Well, first of all, let me preface it by saying I would not touch anything betting college football with a 10-foot pole until they figure out what's going on, because it's just going to be a waste of your money that they're going to hold on to until the season's figured out. But all things being considered equal and everyone plays their schedules, I actually do like Florida this year to make a run because they've been growing a better team under Mullen, and the schedule actually sets up for them this year. I know it's biased opinion, but their schedule actually, with who they play and don't play, sets up nicely for a run. They would have to beat Georgia, of course, and Georgia is going to be a very, very, very strong team this year as well. With college football, it's all the notables. Ohio State's going to be good. Clemson's going to be good. Bama's going to be not as good as they were, but they'll be good. Trying to think who else. NFL-wise, I'm never high on the Browns. I love fading the Browns every single year when everybody jumps on that train. I do think that they're going to be better this year, so this might be the year to take a chance on them, although I still won't do it. Who else in the NFL? I'll tell you, I guess, I'm trying to think. The Dolphins will have a better year, but they won't make, they're not there yet. Tua will take over at some point.
No Super Bowl win on the Dolphins? David?
I have donated $10 to $20 of my hard-earned income every single time I visited the desert of my entire life. So on the Dolphins to win the Super Bowl, they won't win it this year, but betting them to win the division isn't the worst bet in the world. They won't win it, and New England will be okay with Cam, and Buffalo actually is pretty good. But you're getting good odds there. I wouldn't waste my money. I said to look out for the Colts. What other teams do I like? It's not going to be a surprise, but I think the Saints actually get it done this year. Oh. They've had a good team the last couple of years that have had some heartbreaks between the bad call versus the non-call versus the Rams and the Minnesota Miracle. I'm trying to even remember what happened to them last year, but I think you're bringing.
There's a touchdown in the end zone that was a massive push off that was not called. Yep. And they've called it differently in a later playoff game, as we saw.
Sure. So they had 3 straight years where they could have been. They were Super Bowl contender, and you're bringing Breeze back for one last hurrah. And I think the NFC is a lot more wide open than the AFC, and Green Bay is going to be good. Dallas should be good. I didn't buy on San Francisco last year, and it cost me a lot of money up until the Super Bowl. I still don't think they're as good as they were last year, so they'll win the division but take a step back. But I see the Saints as being the class of the NFC, and maybe you're hosting those games in the playoffs come whenever the playoffs are. And I see, I'm not going out on a limb by saying Saints Kansas City Super Bowl or Saints Baltimore. I do think the Colts have a shot, and if I wanted to actually profit on some money, I could pick a Colts Saints Super Bowl. Would be a little bit of an underdog thing. At the end of the day, Baltimore and Kansas City are the 2 best teams in the league. But you saw what happened in the playoffs last year with Baltimore, and Kansas City is the best team in football, and they're going to continue to be. They may be the next Patriots dynasty because I've had everybody locked up, and Mahomes is so young, could be like Brady. You don't want to call them that since it's only year 2. But you see what they bring to the table, and they have the right coaching. They have the right offense, and they're going to be good. They're probably going to – I'm not going to sit here and be stunned when they repeat, but I do like my Super Bowl pick would be the Saints.
Well, there you go, my man. Kind of hurt my feelings going under my Bears there, but I can't. I at that number of 9.5, I can't disagree with you. That's a good number if you're going to play it, and that line did move, and so you predicted that line move really well. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could even possibly middle that if it gets down to 8, and you have some options there. So that's some great stuff. I think a team to fade that I was looking at is the Chargers this year. Mm-hmm. I don't know why their win total was at 8, and I do understand that they have the easier out of conference. Well, not out of conference, but at large is what I'm trying to say. The at large games are always the worst in their divisions when they do that. But at the same time, you have so much change with Rivers leaving. Henry can never stay healthy. Their coach hasn't seemed to put it together yet. And 8 wins in that division against Kansas City and improving Denver Broncos and who knows what with the Raiders. But you do have Chucky over there. I just don't see how they can get to 8 wins. So I guess that's
I was going to say, I agree with you that. I think losing Rivers is a lot bigger than people think it is. Call him what he is. He's never won anything significant, but he was definitely a guy you could count on to be down by, 6 points with 2 minutes to go and doing a no-huddle offense. It was every single week. I think, and I was a big Austin Eckler fan last year. I had him in fantasy and played him a lot in DFS. He's a small dude who took a lot of hits last year. Now you have no Melvin Gordon, period. Another year with Eckler, again, did well last year when he had half the season to himself and the other half he split. Takes a toll on you. Keenan Allen never can stay healthy. I don't like the coach either. That is a team I would fade, and my apologies for fading your Bears. I got a good number, and I've never thought that what the Bears are doing. They had that one year where they won the division and went far, if not for the field goal, not to bring it up. But I just
the double doink. Yeah, thank you.
Double doink. I just, I do like the coach. I just don't think he's in the perfect spot here, and that's a team that I faded. I do like the Vikings. I've always thought the Vikings were a good team. I'm trying to give you another team to fade. A team to fade that isn't already crappy to begin with. I wouldn't fade the Dolphins or Jets. They stink to begin with. I think the Titans might take a step back this year. Not that they were that high last year. They did make the AFC title game, but I've seen enough of Tannehill in my life to know that what you saw last year isn't going to continue. Derrick Henry pounded a lot of carries last year. I'm a big believer in fading guys after career years on the ground. These guys took a lot of hits last year.
He was 350 carries or something he had.
That's hard to come back from. And I'm not saying he wouldn't do it, but if they're not going to give him the ball 350 times and they're going to let Tannehill do it, it's not who I would vote on. So, again, I see the Colts winning that division anyway. I like your idea on San Diego or LA, whatever they're called nowadays. I would actually fade. I would fade both. I make that mistake all the time. I'd fade both LA teams. I don't think the Rams are that good. They overplayed it 2 years ago. You saw a little bit of a step back last year. No Gurley. I'm not a believer in Goff. I think they're overrated. They have a very good head coach, but he needs the weapons. So I would fade the Rams also. They get a lot of pub for the weapons that they have, but they're missing, an all-pro running back, and I didn't think the quarterback was that good. And you're in a division with San Francisco, Seattle, and a very, very good Arizona team. That's another team I would watch for. It's not rocket science, but I think Kyler Murray is very good.
Yeah.
They got some weapons. They traded for DeAndre Hopkins. He now has some more weapons. You got Drake in the backfield. Arizona is a team that every year there's one team that jumps up, but they weren't the year before. It's a tough division, but it wouldn't surprise me if Arizona wins 7 or 8 games and, makes a little bit of – remember, there's a 7th spot this year. So
I believe I got them 9-1 to win the division, and I hedged that with Seattle. I think I took them at, 2.5 to 1 or something, 3 to 1. I can't remember. But yeah, there was a lot of value with Arizona. They filled some serious holes on the offensive line and on the defense. I thought they did a great job on their defense. Simmons was a great draft pick, so I like that. If there's another team to fade, it might be the Eagles. I know Carson Wentz is just played out of his mind the last couple of years, but he's, as you see, a little injury prone. They have Sanders now as just their lead back. They got rid of Howard. Their offensive line, they just re-signed Peters, but how old's that guy now? Is he even going to play every snap?
Who knows?
They lost one of their main cornerbacks. It's escaping my mind, but they've lost a lot, and I just don't see how they even get to 7 or 8 wins this year. And Dallas is going to take a step forward and win that division. And the reason they're going to win is because Dak Prescott has to win. He has everything on him this year, but they also have a very good team behind them. They're loaded at wide receiver, as you can see now. I really think Dallas wins that division, but I would fade the Eagles. I think that might even be a little bit better of a play. I wish I could fade Washington even more, but they're so damn low that I can't. But that's got to be the worst team in football and the most team in disarray, David.
Well, the one thing they have going for them is they actually have a pretty good head coach. One that I never understood was let go by the Panthers. The guy did great work with the Panthers. I do like the future of the Washington team with Ron Rivera. They have nothing to work with this year, so they're going to be bad. I don't know who would be the worst team in football. The Bengals should be better with Burrow. I think the Redskins will be better only because they have Rivera, but will probably stink.
Well, it's a honeymoon year. He can lose. There's not as much pressure on him, so I can see them losing, and he's still going to be fine. So that's a good call.
Yeah, they might be the worst team in the league because the Jaguars will be a little bit better, but will still suck. The Jets and Dolphins will be incrementally better at maybe 6 wins instead of 4 wins or 5 wins. Who's the 1-15 team this year? Maybe the Redskins. I mean, the Giants should be with Jones and Barkley should be okay, not great. Lions are still. This might be the year that they get rid of Patricia and say, all right, the Lions are done. They'll be bad. Although people forget that the Lions were 1 or 2 plays away from being 4-1 last year instead of 2-1-1, and then they lost their last 1 million games in a row. But that was a team that horrible call on Monday night versus Green Bay, and there was another bad. There was a pick 6 at the end of the game that screwed them over. That they could have been 4-1. So.
Yep, absolutely. I remember that. Well, man, we're out of time. I could talk about NFL forever with you, just to let you know. But, man, thanks so much for coming on the Odds Breakers with us, man. Loved your stories, your experiences. Thank you so much for what you did for sports betting over at ESPN. It's nice to meet a real trailblazer like yourself, David. Have a great rest of your week and enjoy yourself some golf.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on, and let me know when you want me on again.
All right, my friends, that's all the time we have left for this episode. Remember, if you like what you hear, please rate, review, and subscribe to the Odds Breakers on your podcast platform. A huge thanks to David Bearman for coming on and breaking down the landscape of sports betting. Have a great rest of your week. Some of our sports are back. Enjoy some baseball. Enjoy some basketball. And remember to go get some winners.